as you tune in from. But to kick us off, I'm Kelly Tolliday. I'm from Travel Kinship. We are a global representation company, and we represent boutique luxury DMCs around the world. We just want to support you in creating unforgettable and seamless experiences for your clients. And the best way that we can do that is by bridging the gap between you and some truly incredible DMCs in some incredible destinations around the world. So today, I'm super excited to introduce Frank Castro. He's the founder of Adventure International. And Adventure International specializes in luxury adventure travel, which is why we're all here today. So thinking summiting, trekking, national parks, wildlife experiences, even surf journeys. During this session, you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions related to planning for luxury adventure trips, things like summiting Kilimanjaro or Everest, or wildlife encounters through the Galapagos, cycling safaris, which seems to be something that's like getting more and more requested these days, creating surf journeys for families around the world, and so much more. So truly, this is like an informal fireside chat where you get to ask Frank questions. Maybe it's a specific question for a specific client. Maybe it's a more general question. But to kick it off, I'm going to let Frank just introduce himself and share a little bit more about Adventure International. And then if you have questions now or as the conversation progresses, please add your questions in the questions box and I'll read them out as they come along. So take it away, Frank.
Okay, cool. If there is a question, will you just kind of in and then I can kind of answer that.
Yeah.
So how you doing, everybody? My name is Frank Castro. I'm one of the owners of Adventure International. From the photos you see, we, obviously focus on high level adventure, trekking, mountaineering, but with a lot of comfort. And so our tagline is private luxury adventure. We actually have a family of brands, and I won't really go too deep into that, but we've got a couple other over the years, we've been able to develop more product than just our trekking and mountaineering stuff. And so we also do glamping and ecodomes under Adventure Portfolio, started some North America National Park DMCs. So Northern Journeys, we're able to do stuff in the USA, Canada, and Alaska. And then California Journeys is a lot more hyper-focused on California. And as Kelly said, we also have sort of dabbled into this world of luxury surfing. So we've got a little boutique brand called Lux Surf. Adventure International is a premier luxury adventure outfitter, and we run white label operations for some of the top brands in the travel industry. We're a pioneer of luxury trekking and mountaineering across the globe. We've evolved into a provider of some pretty unique wildlife experiences, and we're also really involved in super active, multifaceted active travel. Since we have our own product and cruise and glamping, it means that we're able to craft programs that are really proprietary and very unique, stuff that isn't really off the shelf. And we really focus on depth and connection. So really for us, we're all about top quality guiding. We really try and focus on super impeccable trip planning and really kind of making sure that people have those creature comforts. So that's really kind of our marriage, is really that highly active adventure, but then also doing it at a very, very high level. A couple of the themes that we've been working with are, well, I guess that have seemed to really combine well in destinations, is doing peaks and summiting mountains and then combining it with wildlife, or something what we call summit to sea, places where you're able to be on top of mountains and then you find yourself at a location by the ocean. So a lot of times this has kind of become our through line in the way that we've been able to plan trips. If we look at one of our core destinations, Tanzania, I lived there for about 8 years, and there's just so many things to do in Tanzania, and it's just such a multifaceted destination. So, you could be on the top of the biggest mountain in Africa and then find yourself, on the plains of the Serengeti and then head over to Zanzibar. So, and then, further afield, if you wanted to go see chimps in Mahali, there's just so much to do in Tanzania. So, what we really focus on is doing a very high level VIP Kilimanjaro. So that's really sort of what we're known for in the industry. It's sort of the heart and soul of what we do. And we kind of took this high end Kilimanjaro product and tried to see how we could mimic that in places like Nepal, in Peru, Ecuador. And then, of course, a lot of times people wanted to tag on an extension and do something a little bit more. So, of course, in Tanzania, you're able to go see wildlife and you're able to go on safari. And, back in the day, we were really young and adventurous, and we just didn't want to sit in the car for like 8 hours all day. And so we decided to bring some mountain bikes with us. And we kind of didn't know if this would be something that was commercially viable, but actually a lot of people were interested in doing mountain bike race. So and to be clear, we're not like riding bikes in the middle of the Serengeti, like, in front of like a clients. This is stuff that's usually just on the outskirts of the national parks in different community areas. But the nice thing is that nobody would ever miss the actual highlight of going on a traditional game drive in the national park to see animals. So that's always available. These are very supported top level expeditions. So, we've got like support vehicles, mechanics, guides, doing beautiful sundowners, beautiful ups. And then, of course, you go and spend the night at a whole multitude of array of options. So we're able to set up private and exclusive camps in the different parks that are completely private for your group. But if you don't want that, then there's so many different levels of accommodation of where you could stay, from like more permanent lodging to mobile tented camps. If some of you sell Africa, then you'll know that there's all these sorts of doing amazing stuff. And then, for people that have some time, they've got budget, and they want to continue further afield, heading over to Zanzibar or some of the other islands off of Tanzania is a really great way to end your holiday. The way that we kind of do Zanzibar is really active. I mean, you're able to do, actually, it's a really premier destination for kite surfing. Traditional surfing is not so good on Zanzibar, but there's some waves here and there. Stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, of course, diving is super amazing, snorkeling. So, really kind of sticking with this theme of these really active programs. So as you can see, we're very focused on activity, very focused on adventure, but again, with like really those top level creature comforts. Is there any questions so far? Sorry, I can't like see anybody.
Yeah, you're like, hello? Yeah, actually, so we
You're
just
like,
got a
hey,
question. We just got a question
okay,
from Beth.
cool.
She said, Beth says, do you
Uh-huh.
do whale shark trips in Zanzibar / Mafia Island?
We could, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things like, are we like a whale shark specialist? Probably not. There's probably some little company that's like hyper focused on that, but we do have experience in planning that. A lot of clients have very specific requests, so we could totally do that. Yeah.
That's it for now.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll chime in so I don't feel all alone. So okay, another destination is Nepal. Super, super beautiful destination in the Himalayas. And for us, we kind of focus on everything under canvas in Nepal. So we're able to set up really high level glamping setups in most of the popular trekking routes, and also there's some stuff that's off the beaten path. So one of the ways that we really differentiate how we operate in Nepal even in a place like Everest Base Camp, which is completely inundated with a lot of tourism. It's a really big highlight for people around the world. Is we actually bring our own kitchen crew. So even if we do use some of the local lodges, and we're not doing camping setups, a way to really make trekking in Nepal a little bit more higher level is to really control, one, the hygiene, and then second is to control the menus. So what you'll find in Nepal, if you use the local lodges, is their menus are a little repetitive. And after being trekking for like, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 days, it can get a little kind of boring. And so that's one way that we really kind of elevate our product is by, controlling hygiene and controlling the menus. So we actually have a concession in Bardia National Park. It's on the border of India and Nepal. And we actually set up a safari camp in Bardia National Park in this little sleepy area called the Babai River. And we used to do this for specifically for fly fishing trips. And what we found was that after being there for about 3, 4 nights, big game would come to the river to drink. So elephants, rhinos, and tigers. And to be honest with you, until I started going to Nepal a lot, I didn't really know that there was really tiger viewing in Nepal. And so coming from an Africa background, this was absolutely amazing. And again, kind of hit on this sort of great combination and wildlife, right? Tanzania, you had Kilimanjaro safari. Now in Nepal, you can go trek in the Himalayas and then also see wildlife. I hesitate to say it's a jungle experience. I hate to say like safari because, it is sometimes a little bit hard to see the game in Nepal, but they are there and it's really, really amazing. So we're really excited about having this little concession in Bardia National Park to set up these jungle experiences, very high level. The camp is really, really beautiful. And we're able to see tigers, which is really, really awesome. And, for clients who really kind of want like top luxury, I think about a decade ago, it was really hard to really offer a quote unquote luxury trip in Nepal. It just, the destination wasn't there, but now it is. There's definitely some very, very beautiful lodges and camps throughout Nepal. So if clients have budget, we're able to do helicopters to get to places a lot easier. And then, of course, incorporate some really beautiful pre and post trekking options where people can have a lot more luxury with like spas and things like that. So we're really excited that, now Nepal has really up leveled in that sense because we really, really love Nepal. I guess before I go on to Ecuador, is there any questions?
No specific questions about Nepal, but before you move on, I would love to just ask, when you're speaking about Kilimanjaro and Everest and Nepal, a lot of clients and even advisors that might not have experienced high altitude or, trekking like that, they're kind of worried about, can I do this? Like, is this going to be, what's going to happen if I get there? And, there's issues like I guess like maybe how do you as the provider ease their worries and like tailor those types of more intensive summiting experiences or trekking experiences, tailoring it kind of more towards their ability levels or altitude concerns or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So I think for us, the number one thing, and this is why I think by default, we probably couldn't be like this huge company with like hundreds of people. We're very boutique in this sense because for us, what's really important is the intake and the profile of the client. Because in terms of, how remote we're getting and like what we're trying to accomplish at high altitude, there's no way that we couldn't know like what people are expecting and what we're managing because otherwise, my French, it'll become a shit show, right? It's like, wait, hold on, I was expecting this and now we're like, hanging off the mountain, like what's going on here? So I think the is really, really crucial and what people like, what what do they want out of this experience? Because one, to sell a client on Kilimanjaro as this, hey, you're going to be like in the middle of nowhere climbing this peak in Africa, that would be a lie, because there's actually quite a bit of people on Kilimanjaro, right? So, but if somebody was like, I realize there's going to be people there, I really do want to climb to the summit of the biggest in Africa, it's always been my dream, is there a way that we could do it a little different where maybe I won't see as many people? Okay, well, now that's a little nuanced. And now, yeah, actually, there are ways to do it where you might see less people. And again, you're still going to be at a place with a lot of people, but how can we craft it so that you are doing something a little different? And then there might be people who are like, I want to go to Kilimanjaro, but I just want to see it. I actually don't even want to summit. Are you able to do like just 2 day jaunt up to Kilimanjaro? Well, you actually are. Then there's some people who are like, hey, I want to summit and I want to mountain bike down Kilimanjaro. Can we do that? And we're like, actually, we have permission to do that. So, there's just so many different tiers of what people want to do, that this intake process is really, it's really important. Because even in Nepal, hey, I want to go do this journey in the Himalayas and really find myself and tap into something bigger. Okay, well, there's some places where you can go trek and you're probably not going to run into very many people at all. Everest Base Camp is like not that. I mean, there's like so many people there because there's so many people that want to go see, Everest Base Camp. So again, that question is, okay, I realize there's going to be people there. I want to knock off Everest Base Camp as this like lifelong thing, get there. Is there a way to do it where it's not as busy? Okay, well, yes, there actually is. We've got a program where you go off piste for a couple days. We set up camps. You're not going to see a soul for 4 days, but then you kind of go back onto like the main trail. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't answer the question, but I think the point is really this intake is very crucial so that we can really land on this experience. And really for us, it's like, hey, anything's possible, right? You got budget, like you want to create this dream trip, let's do it. And then of course, when we need to talk about, just managing expectations, I think is a thing. And a lot of times, a lot of this stuff is like very doable. And because it's so supported, like that's one of the things that I'd like to say that we're really proud of this is like we don't skimp on the level of support that we offer, whether it's a climb, a bike ride, or whatever we're doing. We really are like using this to employ people. That sounds so cliche. And when I was young, I didn't realize that that's what we were doing. But really, we're using tourism for good. How? By employing people, by employing like a full on little village that is literally supporting you on these trips. So if something goes wrong, something happens, there's so much support, there's so much backup. Hey, this time you're not going to make it to the top of this mountain. We're going to pull back. We're going to go. So, on that sense, we don't skimp. So I'm never worried about somebody, not being able to accomplish something that maybe we set out to do. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's perfect. No, thanks. That's awesome.
That's very circuitous, but um, all right. Well, so I guess we could talk about Ecuador. And,
Perfect.
and yeah, and I think for the purposes of today, I was like, let's focus on a couple destinations that are cool
Yeah.
that we all in, right? So,
Yeah, and if
um,
and if anyone listening has questions about other destinations or other treks or other things that you would love to learn more about, don't feel limited to just what Frank's sharing. Please feel free to drop your questions as and when they come to you in the questions box. And we'll just, as we said, it's very like informal session here. So feel free to drop them in and we'll answer them as they come in. But for now, Frank will continue on.
so Ecuador is just absolutely amazing. One of my favorite destinations. Mainly, well, I don't know, there's a lot of reasons, but for folks who are really passionate about trekking and climbing, Ecuador is really special in that there's something called the Avenue of the Volcanoes. There's very few places in the world where you have access to really, really tall peaks in such a short distance. And Ecuador is one of those places. So many people have heard about Cotopaxi. It's a famous clothing brand. So Cotopaxi is a very iconic volcano, and it's very, very doable for people who climb Kilimanjaro. It's kind of like the next thing. In fact, I'm hosting a group in 2027 to go climb Cotopaxi. More on that later. But you can go do very high altitude climbing in Ecuador, but then also for folks who are not looking to, summit a volcano, there's so many other things to do. I mean, zip lining, rafting, biking. It's a very, very multi-sport nation. And what's really neat about Ecuador is that over 3, 4, 5, 7 days, you're stay at like some very high level on your budget. So, whether it's a very and to like really 5-star super epic lodging. So in that sense, the mainland of Ecuador, there's really, really a ton to do. So the combination after people, do a very highly active, luxurious trip on the mainland, people have time, is to head out to the Galapagos. So the Galapagos is absolutely amazing, amazing, amazing. So the way that we operate Galapagos is actually doing privately guided land-based Galapagos trips. Now, before I started spending a lot of time in Ecuador, I always thought that you had to book a cruise and you go to the Galapagos, you're with like hundreds of people, and that's how you see the Galapagos. Well, that's one way. But another way is that you just can do some island hopping, which is really, really epic. So by doing island hopping, you actually spend more time on the island. So some would argue that maybe you're not seeing as many islands, and there's some truth to that. But if you kind of want a program, again, with a little more depth, a little more connection, a little bit more slower pace, doing these island hopping programs are really, really neat, mainly because you have a full day of activity that you can do. So if you want to go surf in the morning and then in the afternoon go snorkel or go bike ride or go hike, you have a full day to do stuff. Or sometimes when you're on those boats, you have a half day on land, you got to get back on the boat, you have your meal, and then you're kind of heading off to the next island. The way to island hop is there's amazing charter flights that connect the islands, or you can take speedboats. And so those are kind of the ways that you kind of hop between the islands. And so when we're doing our excursions, we've got these 16 passenger kind of like luxury yachts that we use, where we're out for the day doing water activities. We have lunch on board, and then we'll come back. And so with the Galapagos, there's a whole range of places to stay, whether safari camp, private villas, or existing brick and mortar hotels. So the main islands that people island hop between are Santa Cruz, Isabela, and San Cristobal. And then, of course, you can take a day trip to the what's called an uninhabited island for the day, go do excursions, and then come back. As far as I know, there's not really many people doing these sort of island hopping, privately guided types of programs. And this was really, really exciting for us. And again, a way of sort of combining that like, mountain and wildlife experience.
Awesome. This reminds me of a question around multi-gen that we had, but Philip did just write a question saying, what was the biggest challenge you faced during a trip, and how do you give the customers the feeling of adventure for what should be in, sorry, one second, feeling of adventure for, should include, so like how do you give the customers a feeling of adventure, including like some form of like danger, thrill, that kind of adrenaline type thing, but also luxury on this at the same time? I guess that's a two-parter question. What was the biggest challenge you faced? And then, yeah, how do you do that mix of adventure and luxury?
I mean, I'll tell you one of the biggest things that ends for people, and I'm really honest about this up front. A lot of times there's hate camping. And so like they want to go do something really adventurous, and I think that their spirit is there to go do it. But when it comes to like actual camping, they just freaking hate it. And so like if there's a program that is going to involve some, like, even if we're doing like our most VIP type of camping, I just talk to people about it. Like, listen, like, you are going to be camping. So let's just be clear about that. Is that going to be okay? And then I'm sorry to single out like women, but a lot of women are like, oh, can I like have a hair dryer? And I'm like, unfortunately, like, you're camping. And so like, I mean, we can provide a shower, we can do a shower, but there's just nowhere for like a hair dryer. So once I start hearing things like that, I'm like, oh, okay. So that has been part of that could be some of our biggest challenges, is like really letting people know, like, hey, like, this is going to feel rustic for a moment, but then we're going to, you're going to end it in luxury. And so in that sense, I guess what comes to mind is that we really did have this very high profile client, and like this program was like supposed to be like 13 days, and like day 2 she was out. She was like, I'm done. And I was like, oh no. I mean, this was like a very high level glamping, private Michelin star chef, like we did all of this stuff for this trip, and she just couldn't hang with it. And we kind of talked her through it beforehand, and she was like, nope, I'm out. Get a helicopter, we're like going to this like fancy lodge. And I was like, okay, it's fine. We pivoted, but yeah, that seems to be kind of like the biggest challenge, is some people think they're up for being, remote and being in these environments. And honestly, that it's not a thing. So, and that's okay, right? I mean, we're not trying to force anybody to travel like this, but that seems to be one of the biggest challenges. I think there was a second part to this question, I think, right?
I think you answered it. It was kind of like how do you bridge the gap between adventure and luxury?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you want to add for that, or did you feel like you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, listen, this is kind of like what we're trying to do, I think, and I can relate it to myself. When I was young, and I'm speaking like I'm really old. I'm really not, but like when I was younger, I was really up for like really adventurous stuff. I mean, I've slept in like a mud hut with Masai, and like have done like really crazy stuff that's really not for clients and consumers. We would just do some really off the wall stuff. And now, I'm a parent, I'm older. Like sometimes really the thought of like not sleeping in like a proper bed, it kind of sucks. Like I'm like, honestly, like I just want to, so, I kind of think of that, like, how can I go do something really active all day? Because I totally have like ADD and need to like move my body. But at nighttime, oh man, I honestly like, I want a glass of champagne. I want a proper bed. If there's like a sauna and a hot tub, like that's amazing. That's kind of great. So how are we able to combine that? And not every program and specific program will be able to do that, but if we can, that'd be great, right? So trying to make sure that people are comfortable at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a really good balance there. So let's talk about multi-gen and families for a second, because there's always going to be groups of people, and they're going to be a wide range of ages, and maybe some of the group wants to do a more challenging adventure or trek and it's not appropriate, or maybe other members of the family don't. How do you kind of tailor it for groups of, let's say, multi-gen, for example, of wide ages of groups that maybe no, don't all want to be doing the exact same thing, but it's a bucket list for maybe 2 or 3 members of the group, something like that, for example? How would you kind of like manage something like that?
I think it really depends on the destination and where you're staying. So, like I would, you know, kind of sticking somebody on the Kilimanjaro multi-gen is like not gonna work, because there's really like one goal on a program like that. But for instance, like like an Ecuador, where you're on the mainland and heading to Galapagos, there's plenty of opportunities to maybe the group does like this section, or actually maybe you just, it's like grandma to like 5-year-old child could all do the same thing, because we're not going to see we're going to do like a 1 mile little hike to like this really beautiful waterfall and everybody can go swim, you know? So that would work. Where you could totally, you know, tons of stuff to do in Sacred and Cusco and places like that, head to the Amazon. Actually, it's interesting that you asked this question because I actually have a live breeding for a multi-gen family of 10 people wanting to do something in the United States where like literally I think the oldest is 80-year-old grandma and they have a 3-year-old as part of this whole multi-gen profile. And so what I was suggesting was a private 5-bedroom house in Jackson Hole and then catering the day's activities for everybody. So they're going to go do like a Snake River float in Grand Teton, and then we've got like a chuck wagon dinner and show, and then we've got like going on a wildlife safari in Grand Teton. So everything is very catered for that multi-gen experience out of Jackson Hole, kind of using, you know, Grand Teton as this like epic little playground. The other one that I had suggested was like going to a place like Sedona. They want like a private villa home experience. So Sedona, and then going out and doing Jeep tours and hiking, and there's like rafting that they can do. So I think it's just really finding activities that everybody's able to do, right? So instead of, you know, class 5, everybody can kind of hang out, you know? So.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Um, Looking back at, let's say, the actual like logistics of planning for some of these bigger experiences, like summiting Kilimanjaro, going, you know, maybe doing the Inca Trail, Machu Picchu, Everest, those types of things. What's kind of your recommendation for lead time for planning? Let's say somebody gets a client that is a last minute planner and they know they want to do Kilimanjaro. As an advisor, going to your client saying, by the way, I think we should start thinking about this for next year, for however many months. What's kind of your average lead time for something as big as these experiences that might need permits and stuff like that?
To be really honest, we have a lot of people we work with. It's a little stressful, but because we have a lot of flexibility, because a lot of our product is kind of ours, we're able to really turn things around pretty quickly. I think something to think about, this is something for clients to think about when they're planning these big adventures is, of course, like, are you in shape, right? Like, have you been training to do some of these high altitude trips? If somebody was like, hey, sorry, last minute, I have a family for festive and they want to go do private Galapagos, okay, like you don't need to be super uber fit. But somebody who's trying to do Kilimanjaro, I can turn that trip around in 2 weeks, but can you talk to me about what you've been doing for the past, you know, 6 months, right? Like, are you, you know, have you been training? Are you fit? What's going on? So a lot of times with these trips, you do need some lead time in that sense, like at least half a year, even a year. It's not uncommon. And now the other thing at play is just what's going on in the destination. Is it really busy? So sometimes, like for instance, like Alaska right now is really popular. Alaska is just busy. So doing like a last minute trip to Alaska, it just doesn't work because of the space. A place like Patagonia also short window of operation, gets very busy. So to turn around a Patagonia trip is kind of difficult, right? So, but then there's other places where we can turn a trip around pretty quick. So I think it comes down to where are people in their fitness level and what are they trying to accomplish and does it make sense? So, you know, like if right now you're like, hey, there's someone who wants to climb Kilimanjaro in 2 weeks. Yeah, we could do it, but we'd be like, let's get some background on what's going on here, you know?
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, we don't have any questions lined up right now. For those that are still listening, if you have anything in particular that you want to ask Frank while we're here, we can leave the chat open for the next few minutes. We'll see what comes through. And Frank, selfishly, I have a question. What's kind of a new destination you're looking at I know you're known for your Kilimanjaro, your Everest, Cotopaxi and Galapagos and Peru, but is there anything new that you're working on that might not have been fully shared yet to the public?
Um, yeah, I think something we've been a little that we really haven't talked about. Well, actually, we just sent a newsletter, so it's been talked about a little bit. But Morocco's the new place. Morocco has got Toubkal, which is the biggest mountain in North Africa in the Atlas, and so super doable peak to get up there. Morocco is just super fascinating. I mean, to go out into the deserts and do the whole Berber and camels, but then kind of my favorite is you can kind of head out to the coast and go do some surfing. So that seems to be a really, really great destination for us to expand into. So Morocco, that's really, really exciting to be able to offer that. So